Over the past month, we've had a bit of fun with both Demolition Man and Dredd 2012. But let's take a moment to discuss things in a more serious way. First, both are enjoyable action pieces, the former with more humor and traditional action, the latter with its jokes thin in order to pack more punch with each one, combined with more gruesome violence at times. Demolition Man is arguably at the bottom end of an R rating, only its language likely keeping it from being able to hit PG-13. But Dredd would never be anything less than a solid R. Both works are about law enforcement in the future, and both are post-disaster societies. Dredd's is a world with so little order that only a fraction of crimes are investigated, and there's no room for trials. Law enforcement is carried out all the way from the capture to the verdict to the sentencing and possibly even the execution. Demolition Man is a world with meticulous prescribed order, where even speech is policed. But social engineering has created a society that is superficial. Dredd's filth and Demolition Man's cleanliness, skinning alive and stealing food, ubiquitous weaponry and a disarmed populace. They are on the surface total opposites. Yet Demolition Man could be thought of as Dredd taken to a potential end, where the forces of order have completely triumphed. The vision of the future is the order of an ant colony, we're told. And yet ants are, according to Hulldobler and Wilson, who wrote the definitive work on them, quote, arguably the most aggressive and warlike of all animals. They far exceed human beings in organized nastiness. And also, if ants had nuclear weapons, they would probably end the world in a week. And if you say that I'm stretching, what was the reaction to the threat that Friendly and his people posed? To send in Simon Phoenix, the human equivalent of a weapon of mass destruction. In the name of order, both films have characters who feel execution is justified, with the substantial distinction that Phoenix was chaos released into order, and Dredd is order trying to make headway in chaos. Exploring futures such as these exposes us to potentially horrifying possibilities. In the world of Demolition Man, humans have purged the bad by purging the good alongside it, so that humans merely perpetuate themselves. There's nothing beneath the veneer, it's all surface. Things can seem idyllic, but they are already on a path to lead to the Eloi of H.G. Wells, a hopeless primate with the mindset of a cow. To look on them is to wonder what the point is of continuing the species, that these have stopped being humans and are just vehicles for the perpetuation of DNA. Dredd is post-apocalyptic storytelling meets dystopia meets the Wild West lawman. It's a demonstration that the ability to impose order is finite, and that if circumstances are ignored or unable to be properly managed, that we get the worst of all worlds. Mega City 1 exists at the intersection between violent crime and violent law enforcement, between the laws of mankind and the law of the jungle. These films thus require law enforcement figures who can answer the challenges that the world we see faces. John Spartan is the traditional cowboy cop, violating rules and doing whatever it takes to get the job done. The more extreme cowboy cops are de facto vigilantes with a badge, sometimes acting as judge, jury, and executioner. Now, Judge Dredd actually is judge, jury, and executioner. But what we see is that he's very much not like cowboy cops. On the contrary, as someone who provides what small law there is in Mega City 1, Judge Dredd seems to take the law very seriously. It's not, I'm the law, blam, blam, blam. He doesn't just judge people, he judges situations too. He passes over a vagrant with a warning. He uses stun on those that he could easily have just killed because they don't deserve to die for their mistakes. Even with Anderson at the end, while losing her weapon violates the letter of the law, he understands the spirit of the law in a way that says it's a violation not applicable to their extreme situation, especially when contrasted against four who had a badge and betrayed it. Spartan bucks the trend of his cowboy cop archetype because even though he goes outside the law and causes enough damage to be called the Demolition Man, he neither demonstrates inappropriate use of lethal force nor tolerance for the violation of the rights of ordinary citizens, even if that would make his job easier. He chastises Huxley's joy at beating up the bad guys with frustration that hurting people is not a good thing. How can I say he's a cowboy cop even if he bucks the trends? Because typically the cowboy cop is about breaking the rules to deal with the bad guy, and Spartan is about breaking the rules to protect the public. Those might seem the same, but the difference is that the vigilante cop is a hunter, while John Spartan is a protector. The badge he has is who he is, and there's a reason that it's shaped like a shield. His nightmares in cryosleep are sometimes those he mistakenly thinks are victims of his mistake. He might be less civilized due to their standards, but he's not the one who thinks that waiting for Phoenix to kill someone else is the best plan in order to find him. These two law enforcement figures then show us what the extreme situations call for. Someone with a clear understanding of where the lines are, to deliver justice yet not surrender to the temptation that cynicism or fatigue can introduce. These figures need sound judgment to be worthy viewpoint characters. Yes, we expect the skill in physical combat, firearms, and evasion in the face of lethal counterforce, but these lines are what separates them from the criminals they are opposing. Dredd in particular needs to show this because the hero executes the villain the same way the villain had executed those who had crossed her. Slow-mo drug and a long fall. It is Dredd's clear demonstration of his values that shows the act is justice carried out with the backing of the law. The contrast between the two worlds isn't just in the crapsack world of Dredd versus the tidy tyranny of Demolition Man. Crime runs rampant in Dredd because of the sheer enormity of their social problems. Peachtree's is a giant tower, and yet it is crammed full of the unemployed. The problems of Mega City 1's crime is rooted in its poverty and proximity to irradiated wastes. It might be that channeling its massive population towards improving their situation is impossible, that the only real hope is to try to keep the self-destruction in the city to a minimum. Yet Demolition Man shows, even in a supposedly clean and idyllic place, the social problems exist as well, just below the surface. Literally in their case. Friendly may have been down there on principle, but it's unlikely the massive populations seen are there for the same reason. A perfect society is certainly easier if you force the undesirables literally underground. Yet when we consider Anderson in Dredd, there's a glimmer of hope there. Anderson's reasons for wanting to be a judge seem laughably unrealistic in the face of what we see. She wants to make a difference. One person in a massive city-state of 800 million people. And yet that is precisely what she does. She saves Judge Dredd's life, aiding in the purging of a massive criminal syndicate in the process, one that supplies drugs across Mega City 1. It's only her test, and she's already ensured that a famous judge survives what otherwise would have been a lethal encounter, and eliminated a corrupting force in the process. While on the one hand, the judges are doing nothing more than maintaining a status quo, that thing we mentioned earlier about the need for weighing situations and choosing how to apply the law, it is in some instances like a tie on a bonsai tree to shape the growth. The presence of oppressive crime syndicates and street drugs are obstacles to society trying to evolve towards a less horrific state. Demolition Man shows perhaps why weaponizing Simon Phoenix was seen as a necessity. The perfect society had no weapons to employ against the undesirables, so a weapon had to be forged. In the end, while Phoenix turning on the man stopped the force of his personality, which is not nothing admittedly, the rise of the underclass showed that without action, the artificially enforced society was destined to fall. Demolition Man is buoyed by the powerful performance by Wesley Snipes as Simon Phoenix, whose energy makes that character. Snipes owns this figure and plays it with relish. Dredd's title character is brought to life by Carl Urban in an equally magnificent, if 180-degree different performance. Urban reminds me of what I believe Dan O'Bannon said about monsters. Whenever possible, don't cast a stuntman, cast an actor, even if they'll be completely covered, because an actor will bring an entirely different performance, even if they never speak and are never seen. I mention that because Urban is effectively in that situation with Dredd. He spends the entire film wearing that helmet. He can only convey anything with how he speaks, how he moves, and the small lower part of his face. Combine this with the fact Dredd feels no need to explore the background of its title character, and Urban faced an uphill climb, and he met it like he was actually Spider-Man. While Snipes' Phoenix is the embodiment of chaotic violence just this side of the Joker, Lena Headey plays Mama as the embodiment of sheer will. She is someone who clawed from a scarred prostitute to the very top. She dominates through her personality. She is not screaming and ranting. She hands out personal violence surgically, like someone who grasps the effect of it down to the last decimal point. Judge Dredd's pursuit of her is the law of the city versus someone who's a law unto herself, while John Spartan's pursuit of Simon Phoenix is the fulcrum of order and chaos versus the chaotic while resisting the embodiment of order. Demolition Man is a fine film in isolation. Discussions recently about a sequel seem like they're just talk, and it would be ill-advised anyway. Dredd, on the other hand, is a fine film that should be just one chapter in a larger tale. The film is all about plot and world building. There's plenty more to explore in that world, and with a new plot. But there you have it. The sci-fi cop action films. A small genre with different features, yet some core connections underneath.